Joseph was a masterly, learned and scholarly man. Another example is the concept of the virgin birth. Our English language Gospels tell us that Jesus' mother Mary was a virgin. They keep telling us that she was a virgin. Well, let's consider the word virgin. We understand the word. It tells us that this was a woman with no experience of sexual union. But this was translated not from the Greek initially but from the Latin. That was easy because the Latin called her Virgo. Mary was a Virgo. It didn't mean the same thing at all. Virgo in Latin meant nothing more than a young woman. To have meant the same thing as virginish to us today, the Latin would have been Virgo intact, that is to say, a young woman intact. Let's look back beyond the Latin text. Let's see why they called her Virgo, a young woman. Maybe they actually got something right which we've got wrong later on. We discovered that the word translated to mean Virgo, a young woman, was the old Hebrew word Alma, which meant a young woman. It had no sexual connotation whatever. Had Mary actually been physically Virgo intact, the Hebrew word used would have been Bethulah, not Alma. So, have we been completely misguided by the Gospels? No, we've been misguided by the English language translations of the Gospels. We've also been misguided by a church establishment that has done everything in its power to deny women any normal lifestyle in the gospel story. The New Testament's key women are virgins or whores or sometimes widows, never everyday girlfriends, wives or mothers, and certainly not ever priestesses or holy sisters. Notwithstanding that, the Gospels tell us time and time again that Jesus was descended from King David through his father Joseph. Even St. Paul tells us this in his epistle to the Hebrews. But we are taught that Jesus' father was a lowly carpenter and his mother was a virgin, neither of which descriptions can be found in any original text. So it follows that to get the best out of the Gospels we've really got to read them as they were written, not as we decide to interpret them according to modern language. Precisely when the four main Gospels were written is uncertain. What we do know is that they were first published at various stages in the second half of the 1st century. They were unanimous initially in telling us that Jesus was a Nazarene. This is actually upheld in the Roman annals, and the 1st century chronicles of the Jews and the Bible's Acts of the Apostles confirm that Jesus' brother James and St. Paul were leaders of the sect of the Nazarenes. This definition of Nazarene is very important to the Grail story because it has been so often misrepresented to suggest that Jesus came from the town of Nazareth. For the past 400 years, English-language Gospels have perpetuated the error by wrongly translating Jesus the Nazarene as Jesus of Nazareth. There was no connection between Nazareth and the Nazarenes. In fact, The settlement at Nazareth was established in the AD 60s, 30 years or so after the crucifixion. Nobody in Jesus' early life came from Nazareth that was not there. The Nazarenes were a liberal, Jewish sect opposed to the strict Hebrew regime of the Pharisees and Sadducees. The Nazarene culture and language were heavily influenced by the philosophers of ancient Greece, and their community supported the concept of equal opportunity for men and women. Documents of the time referred not to Nazareth but to the Nazarene Society. Priestesses existed in equal opportunity with priests, but this was so different from what the male-dominated Hebrew society wanted and what the later, male-dominated Roman Church required. It has to be remembered that Jesus was not a Christian. He was a Nazarene, a radical, westernized Jew. The Christian movement was founded by others in the wake of his own mission. The word Christian was first recorded and used in AD 44 in Antioch, Syria. In the Arab world, the word used today, as then, to describe Jesus and his followers is Nasra. This is confirmed in the Muslim Quran. Jesus is Nasra. His followers are Nasra. The word means keepers or guardians. The full definition is Nasri Habrit, keepers of the covenant. In fact, the Brit aspect of that is the very root of the country name of Britain. Brit and means covenant land. In the time of Jesus, the Nazarenes lived in Galilee, and in that mystical place which the Bible calls the wilderness. The wilderness was actually a very defined place. It was essentially the land around the main settlement at Qumran, which spread out to Murd and other places. It was where the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered at Qumran in 19